Hi, in this video I have an Intel NUC, this is the model number, and this is what the unit looks like. Now the problem with the unit is this button on the top. Unfortunately the button is now faulty. It's almost like it's fallen in there. If I try and press it, it doesn't pop back out, it doesn't switch the unit on. So I'm going to demonstrate how to solve this with a workaround. Now in this repair I'm going to be replacing this button with this switch. So I'm going to be retrofitting a switch like this. Now it doesn't really matter about the size of the switch, because if you haven't got one that's small, you can also maybe get a little box that goes on top and then you can install whatever switch you have, but just be careful not to cover that light. That's the status light of the drive. Now importantly, the switch must be what we call a push to make switch. That means that when I press, it makes the circuit, or it's a short circuit. When I release the switch, it is now an open circuit. Just demonstrating with my multimeter, I'll put the one lead on the one terminal and now the other lead on the other terminal, and notice the meter is showing me it's an open circuit. When I depress the button of the switch, notice it is going to a short circuit. The meter is also making the continuity sound, the buzzer is going. When I release, open circuit, short circuit. So that's a type of switch that we need to replace the old one with. All right, so we need to remove these 4 screws. Once you've removed these 4 screws, just turn them a little bit and carefully remove this, keeping in mind there are 2 cables that is going to need to be unplugged. There they are. I just pull this straight out, and this cable over here, I also just pull it straight out. Now I can remove this part from the remaining part. Now to get to the button, I need to remove this next board over here. Unfortunately, there's a screw underneath this NVMe drive. If you have not got this NVMe drive, you can go straight to removing that screw, but in my case, I need to remove this NVMe drive. When working with sensitive electronics, it's important to wear an earth strap to discharge any static that builds up on one's hands. The earth strap is plugged into any earth point in your house or lab. If you don't have that, just take your hands and quickly touch them on the floor. That will discharge any static that has built up. Now I can remove this NVMe drive. I grab it like that. There are 2 antenna wires here. I can just pull them out like that. And now I just need to remove 1, 2 screws. Now I'm going to turn this upside down. Now I just tap it a bit, and there I can see it's coming out. So it's coming out nicely. And now I've just got the frame. Right, so there is the button. Now I'm just going to quickly do a test to make sure the button is functional. Using a multimeter set to continuity, I put my 2 meter leads over there, and now when I depress the button, there I can see the resistance is dropping down to less than 10 ohms, and you might be able to hear the sound. I release the button, I can see it's an open circuit. I press the button, it's a short circuit, so the button is functional. Right, now I just need to remove this cover. On the side, there's a space here which you can insert your screwdriver, and I've just put a flat screwdriver in there, and I'm just guiding it along with my fingers. So I can just go like this. And here is the problem. Right, the button pops off, but this little plastic suspension that is supposed to depress it and release is faulty. It's broken off. So the aim of this repair is to put another switch over here, but we just got to be careful because the clearance to get to this switch is not much. There's not much space here, because we don't want to damage this switch over here. Right, I'm just pressing out the steel platform there. There we go. Now I'm going to use this as a holder for the switch. So the switch is going to sit like this, but unfortunately it is popping through. So I need to use a washer. So I have a washer like that, and if I put the washer there, it's great. The only problem is it's a little bit big in terms of the footprint. So that means that when I want to put the front cover on top there, it's getting stuck. You could grind away some of this excess plastic, but what I'm going to do is just try to find a washer that is closer to that size. So I have located one, and there it is. Almost a perfect match. So this is a 12mm washer, but it's just a little bit too small for my switch. So I'm just going to drill it out a little bit with a drill. So I'm just going to widen the hole just a little bit with a drill. Right, so it has now been drilled, and I just opened up that hole a little bit, so this washer is now the perfect size. Right, so that's what the switch looks like. On the other side, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use a bigger washer, and that's what I'm aiming for. So there's the retrofitted switch. When I sandwich the top cover and the bottom cover together, I just want to make sure that it can come through, and there, that is perfectly seated. No problem. Now, you just need to make sure that the switch is not too long, especially the terminals here. So I'm going to bend the terminals to the side, just making the profile much lower. And then just do a quick check that when you put it here, it's not shorting out any of the electronics and it's not actually damaging the switch. Now, a little switch like this is working perfectly because the original plastic piece had a profile. It looked like this one next door. If you can make sure that your replacement switch is about the same height or lower than this post over here, you should be fine. Now, this old switch, we don't even need it. So you could remove it or you could leave it here. In my case, I'm just going to remove it. I'm just inserting a screwdriver at the back and I'm just lifting as I desolder the terminals. All right, so I've removed the old push button switch. You don't have to remove this. You can leave it there, but I just want to make some space here. Right, so I'm now going to extend a wire from there to my switch and then from there to the other terminal of my switch, and there you can see the sign of the switch. So that and that are short circuit and that are also short circuited. I can either solder my switch to that and that or this and this. I'm going to use this and this. Right, so on this NUC, the important point is that and that. If I short these two together, that switches on the unit. So that's where my push button must be wired to. If you left your switch in place, there's no problem. All you need to do is solder your wire into that terminal, and your other wire for your other terminal of your switch goes to that terminal. I've removed the switch just to make space, but as I said, you don't have to do that. I've now got some wire. I'm going to quickly solder the wire to these two terminals. Right, I've hardwired it to that side and that side. Be careful not to run the wires anywhere near this side because there are the two LEDs. We don't want the wire to loop in front of those LEDs, otherwise we will not see the display lights on the top of the unit. I'm just going to use some heat shrink. I'm going to put it over the wire. It's just to cover the terminals of the switch once I've soldered these wires onto the switch. There's the switch terminals. I'm just going to tin them. Right, I've soldered onto the new switch. I'm just going to use some heat shrink just to cover it. Right, just doing a quick check. I'm putting my one lead there, my other lead there. I'm just depressing the button, and then on the meter I can see it is a short circuit. It's a short circuit when I press the button. When I release the button, it's an open circuit. If you had unplugged the CMOS battery, just remember to plug it back in. The new switch is nowhere near the motherboard. I can see that the clearance is perfect, so I can now close up the unit and do some tests. First thing is to just tighten this nut on the other side so that the switch doesn't come loose. Might need to hold the base of the switch while tightening this nut over here. Right, now I leave this loose, and the reason I do that is this is slightly wider than the frame. So what I need to do now is I have to put this ready for me to slide it in, but I'm going to almost drop this part in first at an angle so that it can clear the frame. Right, so there it is. So I had to put this in at an angle, otherwise it won't get in. So now I can seat this top cover here. Now with the top cover seated, I can seat this. Just be careful. We want to make sure we get the Wi-Fi antenna wires here. So I'm just getting these antenna wires through the side there. And now I'm just seating the main board, just going at a bit of an angle. Right, make sure the antenna wires have come through. Now I can just return these two screws. Do a quick check to make sure that all the ports are lining up. That's correct. Plug in the antenna wires. I just put it over the terminal and then I just press it down. Note the polarity. There is the shaded side with the black, and there is the open side, the white. Close the back cover. Notice it says front, and that is the front. I can now just seat these two cables. Alright, so there is the final repair. I've plugged it in, and now I can just press this button and there it is turning on. You might be able to see the blue LED there, and as per normal, if you press and hold the button, it should shut it down. 4 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there it is shut down.
That's down perfectly.
Thanks for watching, and cheers.